You want to be inside of me? Uma's shocked voice echoes through the sealed section of Epsilon 9 research station. Her luminous barzan eyes widen as she stares at Dennis Griffin, her human research partner. Dennis's hands shake as he holds up the neural link device. It's the only way to deactivate the nanobots, Uma. We're running out of time. Alarms blare throughout the station. The experimental barzan nanotech device malfunctioned spectacularly just hours ago, releasing a swarm of self-replicating nanobots. Now, the microscopic machines threaten to overrun both human and barzan crew members. Uma winces, her enhanced muscles twitching uncontrollably. The nanobots integrated with her barzan physiology, granting her incredible strength but causing intense discomfort. I don't know if I can do this, Dennis. It's too intimate. Please, Uma. Trust me. Dennis steps closer, his eyes locked on hers. I know it's asking a lot, but it's our only chance to stop this outbreak. Outside their sealed section, chaos reigns. Human and barzan officials argue over comm channels, each blaming the other for the catastrophe. The fragile alliance between their species hangs by a thread. Dennis glances at his comm unit. A priority message from his superiors flashes on the screen. Secure nanotech for human study at all costs. He swallows hard, torn between his orders and his growing feelings for Uma. The ethical implications weigh heavily on him. As a xenobiologist, he's dedicated his life to fostering understanding between species. Now he's caught in the middle of a potential interstellar incident. Uma stumbles, nearly falling as another wave of nanobots surges through her system. Dennis catches her, their bodies pressed close. He feels the heat radiating from her alien skin, smells the faint metallic scent unique to barzans. We don't have much time, he whispers. The nanobots are evolving, adapting. If we don't stop them now, they could spread beyond the station. Uma nods, her resolve strengthening. Okay, let's do it. But Dennis, promise me something. Anything. Whatever happens, whatever you learn from this link, use it to help both our peoples. Don't let this drive us apart. Dennis hesitates, thinking of his orders. But looking into Uma's eyes, he knows what he has to do. I promise. He activates the neural link device. As it powers up, he takes a deep breath. Ready? Uma closes her eyes. Ready. Dennis places the device on Uma's temple. Their minds connect, human and barzan consciousness intertwining. As they dive into the digital realm to confront the nanobot threat, both know their actions in the next few hours will shape the future of interspecies relations and medical research for generations to come. The fate of two worlds rests in their hands and minds. As the neural link device powered up, a soft hum filled the air. Dennis gently pressed it against Uma's temple, his fingers brushing her skin. The moment of connection was electric, sending a shiver through both of their bodies. Uma, I need to explain something, Dennis said, his voice low and urgent. For the link to work effectively, we need to be in extremely close physical proximity. Uma's luminous eyes widened. How close? Dennis swallowed hard. Our bodies need to be intertwined. It's the only way to ensure the most efficient connection. Uma hesitated, her muscles twitching as another wave of nanobots surged through her system. She glanced at the alarms still blaring outside their sealed section, then back at Dennis. If that's what it takes to stop this threat, then let's do it. They moved quickly to a nearby medical bay, sealing the door behind them. Dennis began preparing the equipment, explaining each step to Uma as he worked. We'll need to remove most of our clothing, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The neural link requires as much skin contact as possible. Uma nodded, her fingers already working at the fastenings of her uniform. Dennis turned away, giving her privacy as he stripped down to his undergarments. When he turned back, he found Uma waiting, her alien physiology on full display. Ready? He asked, approaching the medical bed. As I'll ever be, Uma replied, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. They positioned themselves on the bed, their bodies pressing together. Dennis felt the heat of Uma's skin, the strange texture so different from human flesh. He tried to focus on the task at hand, but couldn't help noticing the way Uma's breath quickened, her chest rising and falling against his. Initiating neural link, Dennis said, activating the device. The world exploded into sensation. Dennis gasped as Uma's consciousness flooded into his mind. Colors he'd never seen before danced across his vision. Scents and tastes he couldn't name filled his senses. He felt Uma's strength coursing through his veins, her enhanced muscles becoming his own. Uma's voice echoed in his mind. Dennis, this is incredible. He could feel her wonder, her fear, her curiosity, all as clearly as if they were his own emotions. But beneath it all, he sensed the nanobots, a chaotic swarm of microscopic machines integrated into Uma's very being. Dennis reached out with his mind, trying to interface with the nanobots. They resisted, adapting to his attempts to deactivate them. He pushed harder, using Uma's enhanced nervous system as a conduit. Suddenly, a new sensation washed over them both. The nanobots were changing, evolving in response to their joined consciousness. Dennis felt a surge of panic. Uma, something's happening, he projected the thought to her. The nanobots are incorporating aspects of human physiology into their programming. Outside the medical bay, chaos erupted. Crew members, both human and barzan, cried out as the hybrid nanobots spread rapidly through the station. In the control room, Commander Marcus Holt barked orders, trying to contain the outbreak. Sir, a junior officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They're ordering us to consider destroying the station. Holt's face paled. That's a last resort. Keep trying to isolate the affected areas. In the station's main lab, Dr. Liana Chen stared at her screens in disbelief. This is impossible, she muttered, watching as the hybrid nanobots created new neural pathways between infected humans and barzans. Back in the medical bay, Dennis and Uma's link deepened. Memories flowed between them. Dennis's childhood on Earth, Uma's training on Barzan Prime. They felt each other's hopes, fears, and growing attraction. As their connection intensified, Dennis began to uncover hidden aspects of the nanobot programming. Uma, he projected, I think I've found something. There are fail-safes, control mechanisms we didn't know about. Uma's consciousness surged with excitement. Can we use them to stop the outbreak? Before Dennis could respond, a new alarm blared through the station. Commander Holt's voice came over the intercom. Attention, all personnel. A Barzan warship has arrived and is demanding to board. All security teams to your stations. Dennis and Uma remained locked in their neural link, unaware of the escalating crisis outside. As they worked to unravel the secrets of the nanobots, their bodies pressed closer together, hearts beating in sync. In the vastness of space beyond Epsilon 9, the Barzan warship loomed. On its bridge, Captain Jorthex glared at the view screen showing the research station. I won't ask again, she growled into the comm. Allow us to board immediately, or we'll be forced to take more drastic action. Inside Epsilon 9, humans and Barzans alike watched in growing fear as the situation spiraled out of control. The fate of the station, and perhaps the future of interspecies relations, hung in the balance. And at the center of it all, in a sealed medical bay, Dennis and Uma remained locked in their intimate neural link, racing against time to unravel the nanobot mystery before it was too late. As Dennis and Uma remained locked in their neural link, the connection between them deepened. Their minds intertwined, creating a shared consciousness that transcended their individual selves. In this state of unity, they began to uncover crucial information about the nanobots' programming. I see it, Uma's voice echoed in Dennis's mind. There's a pattern to their behavior. Dennis focused, using their combined mental strength to navigate the complex nanotech systems. You're right. It's like a maze, but we're solving it together. Their synchronization allowed them to work with unprecedented efficiency, each thought and action perfectly complementing the other. As they delved deeper into the nanobot code, a hidden structure began to emerge. Suddenly, a burst of insight flooded their shared consciousness. Dennis, Uma's excitement reverberated through their link. Look at this, it's a failsafe mechanism. Dennis examined the code Uma had uncovered. You're right, this could be our solution to deactivate the swarm. As they worked to understand the failsafe, the situation outside their sanctuary deteriorated rapidly. Dr. Liana Chen stood in the main lab, her eyes wide with disbelief as she watched the monitors. The hybrid nanobots continued to spread throughout the station, affecting both human and barzan crew members indiscriminately. "This is unprecedented," she muttered, noting the changes in the infected individuals. They displayed enhanced physical abilities, moving with inhuman speed and strength. But more alarmingly, they seemed to be developing a form of cross-species communication. A human engineer stumbled into the lab, his eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. "We are one," he said, his voice overlapping with a barzan accent. "Why do you resist?" Dr. Chen backed away, her hand reaching for the emergency alarm. "Security to the main lab now!" In the control room, Commander Marcus Holt faced a different crisis. The view screen showed the looming Barzan warship, its weapons primed and ready. "Sir," Communications Officer Zhang reported, "we're receiving another transmission from the Barzan vessel." Holt nodded grimly. "Put it through." Captain Jorathex's face appeared on the screen, her expression a mask of impossibly strong fury. "Commander Holt, I will not ask again. Allow us to board immediately, or we will be forced to take more drastic action. You have 1 hour to comply." Holt's mind raced, weighing his options. The orders from Earth were clear: protect the nanotech at all costs. But facing down a Barzan warship could lead to an interstellar incident, or worse. "Captain Thex," he began, choosing his words carefully, "I understand your concerns, but I need more time to assess the situation and ensure the safety of all personnel on board." Thex's eyes narrowed. 1 hour, Commander. Not a second more." As the transmission cut off, Holt turned to his crew. "Initiate emergency protocol Epsilon. Seal off all external access points to the station." "Sir," Zhang protested, "that will trap us all inside with the nanobots." Holt's expression hardened. "It will also buy us time, and right now, time is the one thing we need most." Back in the medical bay, Dennis and Uma had reached a critical juncture. Their discovery of the fail-safe mechanism offered hope, but implementing it would require an even deeper neural connection. "Uma," Dennis projected the thought, his mental voice tinged with concern. "To activate the fail-safe, we need to attempt a full neural merger. It's risky. Our minds and bodies will be temporarily fused." Uma's consciousness pulsed with a mix of fear and grit. "What are the dangers?" "Permanent mental fusion, complete neural collapse, or worse." A moment of silence passed between them. Then Uma's perseverance strengthened. "We have no choice. It's our only chance to save the station and prevent a war." Dennis initiated the procedure, their bodies pressing even closer together on the medical bed. As the neural link intensified, waves of sensation washed over them. Memories flowed freely. Dennis's first day at the academy, Uma's childhood on Barzan Prime, their initial meeting on Epsilon 9. Their minds intertwined completely, individual thoughts becoming indistinguishable. In this state of total unity, they gained unprecedented access to the nanobot control systems. "We need to reprogram the failsafe," their shared consciousness realized, quickly before the hybrid swarm evolves further. They began the delicate process, their merged mind working with incredible speed and precision. But as they progressed, an unexpected complication arose. Dennis felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through his body. The nanobots in Uma's system, now recognizing his human physiology as part of their base programming, began to alter him at the cellular level. "Uma," he projected, a note of panic in his thoughts. "Something's happening to me." Their shared consciousness examined the changes. Dennis was slowly transforming, his DNA rewriting itself into a human Barzan hybrid. Before they could fully process this development, a loud banging echoed through the medical bay. Outside, a group of infected crew members clawed at the door, their minds driven by the growing hive consciousness. "Stop them!" a chorus of voices cried. "They threaten the collective." Security Chief Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. "This is Rodriguez. We're holding position outside the medical bay, but these infected crew members are strong. I don't know how long we can keep them back." Inside the medical bay, Dennis and Uma remained locked in their neural merger, racing against time to reprogram the failsafe. Dennis's transformation accelerated, his skin taking on a bluish tint, his muscles expanding with barzan-like enhancements. In orbit, Captain Thex's patience had run out. "Target their primary life support systems," she ordered her gunners. "Prepare to fire a warning shot." As the Barzan warship's weapons powered up, Epsilon 9's automated defense systems activated, bringing the station's own guns to bear. Inside the station, alarms blared. Commander Holt's voice rang out over the intercom. "All personnel, brace for possible impact. This is not a drill." In the medical bay, Dennis and Uma neared completion of the failsafe reprogramming. Their merged consciousness worked furiously, aware of the chaos unfolding around them, but unable to divert their focus. "Almost there," their shared mind projected. "Just a few more seconds." Outside, the infected crew members redoubled their efforts to break through the door. Security forces fired stun weapons, trying to subdue them without causing permanent harm. In space, human and Barzan ships faced each other, weapons primed and tensions at a breaking point. And at the heart of it all, Dennis and Uma's fingers hovered over the neural interface, poised to activate the reprogrammed failsafe. The fate of Epsilon 9, its crew, and the future of human-Barzan relations hung in the balance, dependent on the success of their audacious attempt. As Dennis and Uma's fingers hovered over the neural interface, time seemed to slow. Their merged consciousness focused intently on the task at hand, aware of the chaos unfolding around them, but unable to divert their attention. With a shared thought, they activated the reprogrammed failsafe. A surge of energy pulsed through the station, emanating from the medical bay. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout Epsilon 9, infected crew members stopped in their tracks, the eerie blue glow fading from their eyes. The nanobots began to deactivate, releasing their hold on the human and Barzan hosts. In the medical bay, Dennis and Uma's bodies tensed as the energy wave washed over them. Their neural link, already profound, intensified beyond anything they had experienced before. Memories, emotions, and sensations flowed between them in a torrent of shared consciousness. Dennis felt Uma's childhood on Barzan Prime as if it were his own. The vibrant purple skies, the taste of gazelle fruit on a warm summer day, the pride of her first successful neural interface. Uma, in turn, experienced Dennis's life on Earth, the feeling of cool grass between his toes, the excitement of his first spaceflight simulation, the bittersweet moment of leaving his family behind to join the Epsilon 9 mission. As their minds merged further, Dennis's transformation accelerated. His skin took on a distinct bluish tint, spreading from his fingertips up his arms. He felt his muscles expanding, bones shifting, as his body reconfigured itself into a human-Barzan hybrid form. Through their shared consciousness, Uma witnessed the change with a mix of fascination and concern. "Dennis," she projected, her thoughts tinged with worry. "Your body, it's changing so rapidly." Dennis's response came as a wave of reassurance. "I can feel it. It's incredible. I feel stronger, more alive." Their intimate mental connection deepened their emotional bond, transcending their previous professional relationship. Feelings of attraction, respect, and a profound sense of unity flowed between them. Outside the medical bay, the situation was rapidly changing. The infected crew members, now free from the nanobots' control, stumbled and swayed as they regained their individual consciousness. Security Chief Elena Rodriguez lowered her weapon, watching in amazement as the hostiles transformed back into their colleagues before her eyes. "Stand down," she ordered her team. "They're coming back to themselves." In the main lab, Dr. Liana Chen sprang into action. "Medical teams to all affected areas," she called out, already moving towards the door. "We need to assess and treat everyone exposed to the nanobots." As Chen and her team spread throughout the station, they discovered an unexpected development. The hybrid nanobots, though inert, had left traces of their programming in both human and Barzan physiology. Scans revealed subtle changes in neural pathways, creating a unique biological link between the two species. In the control room, Commander Marcus Holt watched the monitors with a mix of relief and apprehension. The immediate threat had subsided, but the situation remained precarious. He turned to Communications Officer Zhang. "Open a channel to the Barzan warship," he ordered. Captain Jorah Thex's face appeared on the screen, her expression still hard but tinged with curiosity. "Commander Holt," she said, "our sensors detect a significant energy surge from your station. Explain." Holt took a deep breath. "Captain Thex, I'm pleased to report that we've successfully contained the nanobot threat. The situation is under control." Thex's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to take your word for it? I demand proof. Prepare to receive an inspection team." As Holt negotiated with Thex, Security Chief Rodriguez and her team moved through the station, securing previously infected areas. They encountered unexpected changes in the station's systems. Control panels that responded to both human and barzan touch, interfaces that seemed to anticipate the user's needs regardless of species. Back in the medical bay, Dennis and Uma's neural link began to destabilize as the nanobots powering it shut down. They struggled to maintain their connection, their shared consciousness fragmenting at the edges. "Uma," Dennis projected, his thoughts tinged with panic. "We're losing the link. If we separate too quickly, it could cause severe mental trauma," Uma finished, their minds still in sync. "We need help." Dr. Chen, alerted to their situation, rushed into the medical bay. She took in the scene, Dennis's transformed appearance, the two of them still physically connected to the neural interface, and immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. "Hold on," she said, moving to the medical console. "I'm going to develop a procedure to safely separate your minds while preserving Dennis's new hybrid state. It's going to take some time, so try to remain calm and maintain your connection as best you can." As Chen worked, a new presence entered the station. Lieutenant Zara Vex led the Barzan inspection team, her posture rigid and eyes alert as they moved through the corridors. To her surprise, she encountered scenes not of chaos, but of humans and barzans working side by side to recover from the incident. In a research lab, she watched a human scientist and barzan engineer collaborating seamlessly, their movements almost synchronized as they analyzed data from the nanobot event. In the mess hall, she saw mixed groups sharing meals, conversations flowing naturally despite the recent crisis. Meanwhile, Dennis and Uma, still locked in their fading neural link, became aware of the Barzan team's presence. Through their shared consciousness, a realization dawned. "Uma," Dennis projected, "our condition, my hybrid form, your nanotech enhancements, we could be a bridge between our species." Uma's thoughts resonated with excitement. "Yes, a living example of human Barzan integration. We could use this to foster understanding, cooperation." As Dr. Chen prepared the separation procedure, she made a startling discovery. "Dennis, Uma," she said, her voice a mix of awe and concern. "The hybrid nanobots have created permanent changes in Dennis's DNA. Even after separation, he'll retain Barzan characteristics." The implications of this revelation rippled through their shared consciousness. As Dr. Chen initiated the separation process, Dennis and Uma shared a final moment of intense connection. Their minds intertwined, bodies pressed close. They silently vowed to use their unique bond to bridge the gap between their species. As the neural link began to fade, Dennis felt Uma's consciousness slipping away. He clung to the last traces of their connection, trying to memorize the feeling of their shared mind. Uma's final thought echoed through him. "This is not an end, but a beginning." The separation procedure continued, marking the start of a new chapter for Dennis, Uma, and the future of human-Barzan relations. As their individual consciousness reasserted itself, the full impact of their shared experience began to unfold, promising to reshape the landscape of interspecies cooperation in ways they had yet to fully comprehend. As the last vestiges of their shared consciousness faded, Dennis and Uma found themselves in a peculiar state of partial connection. Dr. Chen's face came into focus, her brow furrowed with concern. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "The separation process is more complicated than I anticipated. The hybrid nanobots are resisting our attempts to sever your neural link completely." Dennis blinked, trying to orient himself. He could still feel Uma's presence in his mind, but it was different now, less overwhelming, more like a whisper than a shout. He turned to look at her, noticing the same confusion in her eyes. "Uma?" he thought, testing their connection. "I'm here," her voice echoed in his mind, clear as day despite her lips remaining still. This is unexpected. Dr. Chen watched their silent exchange with growing interest. You can still communicate telepathically, can't you? She asked, her scientific curiosity overtaking her initial worry. Dennis nodded, feeling a strange sensation as he did so. His body felt different, heavier in some places, lighter in others. He looked down at his hands, marveling at the bluish tint that had spread across his skin. The transformation, Uma projected, sensing his thoughts. It's still progressing. Before they could discuss further, Commander Holt's voice crackled over the intercom. Dr. Chen, what's the status of Dennis and Uma? Chen hesitated for a moment before responding. Sir, we've encountered some complications. The separation process is incomplete. They retain a partial neural link and, well, you should see this for yourself. Moments later, Holt strode into the medical bay, his eyes widening as he took in Dennis's altered appearance. Well, this is certainly a development, he said, his tone measured. Dr. Chen, what are the implications of their current state? As Chen began to explain, Dennis felt a sudden influx of emotions that weren't his own. Anxiety, curiosity, and a hint of excitement flowed through him. Uma's feelings, he realized, as clear to him as his own. Commander, Dennis interrupted, his voice slightly raspy from disuse. Uma and I, we can still communicate telepathically, but it's different now. We're separate, but connected. Holt's eyebrows shot up. Is that so? And your physical changes, Dennis? Ongoing, sir, Dennis replied, flexing his fingers experimentally. I feel different, stronger, more aware. Uma stepped forward, her hand brushing against Dennis's arm. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through their partial link. Commander, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil Dennis could feel beneath the surface. I believe our current state could be beneficial, especially given the current diplomatic situation. Holt considered this for a moment, his eyes darting between Dennis and Uma. You may be right, he said slowly. In fact, I think it's time we introduced you to our Barzan guests. As if on cue, the medical bay doors slid open, revealing Lieutenant Zara Vex and her inspection team. The Barzan officer's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene before her. What is the meaning of this? Vex demanded, her gaze fixed on Dennis's transformed appearance. Holt stepped forward, his posture relaxed but authoritative. Lieutenant Vex, allow me to introduce you to Ensign Dennis Parker and Dr. Uma Nix. They've undergone some unique changes as a result of our recent incident. Vex's team murmured among themselves, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Dennis could feel Uma's nervousness through their link, and he instinctively reached out to steady her. Perhaps a demonstration is in order, Holt suggested, nodding to Dennis and Uma. Understanding his intent, Dennis turned to face the Barzan team. Lieutenant Vex, he began, speaking in flawless Barzan, his mind seamlessly translating concepts that would have been incomprehensible to him just hours ago. We stand before you as living proof of what our species can achieve together. Uma picked up where he left off, her words flowing in perfect sync with Dennis's thoughts. Our partial neural link allows us to bridge the gap between human and Barzan communication, translating not just words, but entire cultural frameworks. The Barzan team watched in fascination as Dennis and Uma continued their demonstration, effortlessly switching between languages and explaining complex cultural nuances with ease. Even Vex's stern expression softened as she witnessed the depth of their connection. As the demonstration concluded, Vex turned to Holt, her eyes glinting with a new light. Commander, she said, her tone measured but tinged with excitement, I believe I have a proposal that could benefit both our peoples. Holt nodded, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. I'm listening, Lieutenant. These two, Vex gestured to Dennis and Uma, could serve as intermediaries in our upcoming negotiations. Their unique abilities could help prevent misunderstandings and foster greater cooperation between our species. Holt considered the proposal for a moment, his gaze shifting between Dennis and Uma. Through their link, Dennis could feel Uma's mix of excitement and apprehension at the idea. He shared her feelings, understanding the weight of the responsibility being placed on their shoulders. I believe that's an excellent suggestion, Lieutenant. Holt finally said. Of course, we'll need to discuss the details with Captain Thex and my superiors. But I think we may have just found a way to turn this crisis into an opportunity for both our peoples. As the gravity of their new role settled over them, Dennis and Uma shared a silent moment of understanding through their link. They knew that the path ahead would be challenging, filled with diplomatic minefields and personal complications. But as they stood there, caught between two worlds and bound by a connection neither fully understood, they felt a spark of hope for the future they might help create. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by Dr. Chen clearing her throat. "Commander, Lieutenant," she said, her voice tinged with urgency, "there's something else you need to see. It's about the residual effects of the nanobots on the rest of the crew." "Station. The nanobots have affected more than just Dennis and Uma," she explained, gesturing for everyone to follow her to a nearby console. As the group gathered around, Dr. Chen pulled up a series of scans and data readings. "We've detected trace amounts of hybrid nanobots in several crew members who came into contact with Dennis during the incident. While the effects are minimal, they're showing increased neural plasticity and improved cellular regeneration." Commander Holt leaned in, studying the data with a furrowed brow. "Are we looking at a potential health risk?" "No, sir," Chen replied, shaking her head. "If anything, it appears to be beneficial. But it does raise questions about the long-term implications of this technology." Lieutenant Vex's eyes widened as she processed the information. "This could revolutionize medical treatment for both our species," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. As the implications of Dr. Chen's discovery sank in, the atmosphere in the medical bay grew charged with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Dennis and Uma exchanged glances, their partial neural link humming with shared thoughts about the potential consequences of their condition. Over the next few days, Epsilon 9 became a hive of activity as preparations for the diplomatic negotiations intensified. Dennis and Uma found themselves at the center of attention, their unique bond becoming the focal point of both scientific study and political maneuvering. Dr. Chen, working tirelessly alongside a team of barzan scientists, developed a stabilizing treatment to maintain Dennis's hybrid state without risking further uncontrolled transformation. However, the treatment came with an unexpected caveat. The stabilization process requires regular physical contact between you and Uma, Dr. Chen explained to Dennis as they reviewed the treatment protocol. Your shared nanotech systems need to balance each other out. Dennis nodded, feeling a mix of relief and nervousness through his link with Uma. The implications of this requirement added another layer of complexity to their already unique situation. As the day of the diplomatic summit arrived, Epsilon 9 buzzed with anticipation. High-ranking officials from both human and barzan governments filed into the station's main conference room, their faces a mix of curiosity and caution. Dennis and Uma stood at the center of the room, their role as intermediaries drawing curious glances from the assembled delegates. As the discussions began, they found themselves seamlessly translating not just words, but entire cultural concepts between the two groups. The Barzan delegation expresses concern over the potential military applications of the hybrid nanotechnology, Dennis conveyed to the human officials, his mind effortlessly processing the complex Barzan language. Uma picked up the thread, her voice calm but firm as she addressed the Barzan representatives. The human delegation assures that their intentions are purely scientific and medical in nature. As the negotiations progressed, tensions began to rise. The debate over the control and application of the nanotechnology grew heated, with both sides becoming increasingly entrenched in their positions. Suddenly, in the middle of a particularly tense exchange, Dennis felt a surge of energy course through his body. His skin began to ripple, taking on a more pronounced blue hue. Gasps and murmurs erupted from the human delegates as they watched Dennis's features shift, becoming more Barzan in appearance. Panic threatened to overtake the room as Dennis struggled to control the unexpected transformation. Without hesitation, Uma stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. The moment their bodies made contact, a visible wave of energy pulsed between them. Dennis felt his body stabilize, the uncontrolled changes halting as Uma's nanobots synchronized with his own. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the intimate scene before them. As Dennis and Uma slowly separated, Lieutenant Zara Vex stood up, her eyes gleaming with inspiration. "Esteemed delegates," she began, her voice cutting through the tension, "what we have just witnessed is a powerful demonstration of what our two species can achieve together." Vex paused, allowing her words to sink in before continuing. "I propose a bold initiative, a pilot program for voluntary human barzan hybridization. Imagine a future where individuals like Dennis could serve as living bridges between our cultures, fostering deeper understanding and cooperation." Her proposal sent shockwaves through the assembly. Heated debates erupted among the delegates, with some embracing the idea enthusiastically, while others voiced strong opposition. As the arguments raged on, Security Chief Elena Rodriguez slipped quietly out of the conference room, her instincts on high alert. Something about the sudden escalation of tensions didn't sit right with her. She made her way to the security center, determined to investigate any potential threats to the negotiations. Little did Rodriguez know that her suspicions were about to lead her to uncover a plot that would put not just the negotiations, but the entire station at risk. As she delved deeper into her investigation, the true test of human barzan cooperation was about to begin, with Dennis and Uma's unique bond at the center of it all. As Security Chief Elena Rodriguez delved deeper into her investigation, the events unfolding in the medical bay would soon add another layer of complexity to the already tense situation. Dennis and Uma stirred simultaneously, their eyes fluttering open as they regained consciousness. They found themselves still intertwined, a tangle of limbs and shared sensations. Dr. Chen approached them cautiously, her face a mixture of concern and fascination. "How are you feeling?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. Dennis opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form the words, he felt a rush of emotions that weren't his own. Confusion, disorientation, and a hint of embarrassment flooded his mind. He turned to Uma, their eyes locking. I can feel what you're feeling," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Uma nodded, her eyes wide. "And I can sense your thoughts. It's like a constant hum in the back of my mind." Dr. Chen's eyebrows shot up as she quickly moved to her console, fingers flying over the controls. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The hybrid nanobots appear to have created a permanent, low-level telepathic connection between you two." As Dennis and Uma slowly disentangled themselves, they found that even as they moved apart, the connection remained. It was a subtle but constant presence, like a whisper just on the edge of hearing. "This is unexpected," Commander Holt said, having silently observed the exchange. He stepped forward, his face thoughtful. "Dr. Chen, what are the implications of this development?" Before Chen could respond, the medical bay doors slid open, revealing Lieutenant Vex and Captain Thex. Their arrival brought a palpable shift in the atmosphere, the weight of diplomatic tensions settling over the room. "Commander Holt," Captain Thex began, his voice measured, "we've received word from our respective governments. They're eager to move forward with negotiations, particularly in light of recent developments." Holt nodded, his gaze shifting between Dennis and Uma. "I believe I have a proposal that might satisfy both sides," he said. "A joint human barzan research initiative, with Dennis and Uma as its figureheads. We could study the potential benefits of controlled hybridization and nanotech integration between our species." The room fell silent as the implications of Holt's suggestion sank in. Dennis and Uma exchanged glances, their newly formed link humming with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "It's an intriguing proposition," Vex said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "But there are security concerns to consider. The incident with the nanobots has exposed vulnerabilities in our systems." As if on cue, Security Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, I've implemented new security protocols to address the nanotech vulnerabilities. Request permission to begin testing immediately." Holt considered for a moment before responding. "Permission granted, Chief, and I want Dennis to assist you. His hybrid physiology could be invaluable in identifying potential weaknesses." Dennis nodded, feeling a surge of commitment. As he prepared to leave, Uma reached out, grasping his hand. The contact sent a jolt through their link, intensifying their connection. "Be careful," she said, her voice barely audible. He squeezed her hand, sending a wave of reassurance through their bond. "I will." As Dennis left with Rodriguez, the remaining group turned their attention to the complex task of negotiating the terms of the joint research initiative. Hours passed in a flurry of debate and compromise, with Uma serving as a crucial bridge between the human and barzan perspectives. Meanwhile, in a sealed section of the station, Dennis and Rodriguez were deep into their security tests. Dennis moved through the area, his hybrid senses attuned to the subtle fluctuations in the station's systems. Suddenly, as he passed a seemingly innocuous panel, Dennis felt a strange resonance within his body. Before he could warn Rodriguez, a surge of energy coursed through him. The world around him blurred as dormant nanobots in the station's systems sprang to life, responding to his hybrid signature. Panic gripped Dennis as he realized he had accidentally triggered a nanotech defense system. The air around him shimmered with microscopic activity as second-generation nanobots began to spread. "Rodriguez," he shouted, his voice strained, "initiate lockdown procedures. We have a nanobot outbreak." As alarms blared and emergency protocols activated, Dennis struggled to control the spreading nanobots. His hybrid physiology gave him a tenuous connection to the swarm, but it wasn't enough. The new nanobots were evolving rapidly, adapting to his attempts to subdue them. In the medical bay, Uma suddenly doubled over, gasping. Dr. Chen rushed to her side, but Uma waved her off. "It's Dennis," she panted. "He's in trouble. I can feel his distress." Without waiting for permission, Uma bolted from the medical bay, her enhanced barzan physiology allowing her to navigate the station's corridors with incredible speed. She followed the pull of their telepathic link, drawn inexorably toward Dennis. As Uma reached the sealed section, she found Rodriguez frantically working to contain the outbreak. Through the observation window, she could see Dennis at the center of a swirling mass of nanobots, his face contorted in concentration. "Let me in," Uma demanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. Rodriguez hesitated for a split second before overriding the lockdown. As the door slid open, Uma rushed in, the nanobots immediately reacting to her presence. Uma reached out, both physically and mentally, to Dennis. As their hands clasped, their telepathic link flared to life with newfound intensity. Together, they focused their combined will on the swarming nanobots. Slowly, agonizingly, the nanobots began to respond. The swarm's erratic movements became more ordered, coalescing into intricate patterns around Dennis and Uma. With a final push of mental effort, they guided the nanobots back into dormancy, the microscopic machines settling into inert clusters. As the immediate danger passed, Dennis and Uma slumped against each other, exhausted but relieved. Their victory, however, was short-lived. Dr. Chen's voice came over the intercom, her tone urgent. "Commander Holt, I've analyzed the data from the outbreak. The second-generation nanobots, they're showing signs of emergent intelligence. They're adapting and evolving at an unprecedented rate." The implications of Chen's discovery hung heavy in the air. As Dennis and Uma exchanged weary glances, they knew that their journey was just the beginning. The true test of human barzan cooperation was just beginning, with their unique bond at the center of it all. The revelation of the second-generation nanobots' emergent intelligence sent shockwaves through Epsilon 9's command structure. As the implications of this discovery sank in, events on the station began to accelerate at a dizzying pace. Weeks passed in a flurry of research, negotiations, and preparations. The joint Human Barzan Research Initiative, with Dennis and Uma at its core, became the focal point of intense scientific and diplomatic activity. Both species recognized the potential of this new technology, but also the risks it posed. As the research progressed, Dennis and Uma's bond deepened. Their unique connection allowed them to interface with the evolving nanobot swarms in ways that no one else could, making them invaluable to the project. However, this intimacy came at a cost. The lines between their individual identities began to blur, their thoughts and emotions intertwining in complex ways. On the day of their joining ceremony, tension hung in the air like a static charge. The event had taken on significance far beyond a simple union between two individuals. It had become a symbol of the potential future that lay before both species. Dennis stood at the center of the ceremony chamber, his hybrid features a striking blend of human and barzan characteristics. He watched as Uma glided down the aisle, her blue skin shimmering under the station's lights. The assembled crowd of humans and barzans watched in hushed anticipation. As Uma reached Dennis, they clasped hands. The moment their skin made contact, their neural link flared to life with unprecedented intensity. A wave of shared emotion washed over them, so powerful that they staggered slightly. "Are you okay?" Dennis whispered, his concern evident in both his voice and through their mental connection. Uma nodded, her eyes wide. "Yes, but it's different. Stronger." Before they could discuss it further, the officiant began the ceremony. As vows were exchanged and rituals from both cultures were performed, Dennis and Uma felt their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. Suddenly, as they sealed their union with a kiss, a surge of energy pulsed through their joined bodies. The station's lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Alarms blared to life, their harsh sounds shattering the ceremonial atmosphere. Commander Holt's voice crackled over the intercom, tense and urgent. "Attention all personnel. We have a station-wide nanobot activation. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel report to evacuation points immediately." Panic erupted in the ceremony chamber. As security teams rushed to maintain order, Dennis and Uma found themselves at the eye of the storm, their minds buzzing with input from the awakening nanobot swarms. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Dennis, Uma, we need you in the main lab now." As they raced through the corridors, the station seemed to come alive around them. Doors opened and closed erratically, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Through their enhanced senses, Dennis and Uma could feel the nanobots integrating with Epsilon 9's core systems, rewriting protocols and creating new pathways. They burst into the main lab to find Dr. Chen hunched over a console, her fingers flying across the controls. She looked up as they entered, her face pale. "The nanobots," she said, her voice tight with tension. "They're not just active, they're evolving. They're trying to create some kind of network, using the station as a framework." Commander Holt strode into the lab, his face grim. "Dr. Chen, what are our options?" Before Chen could respond, Dennis spoke up. "We can feel them, Commander. The nanobots. They're not trying to harm us. It's like they're reaching out." Uma nodded. "They want to create something new, something that could change everything for both our species." Holt's eyes narrowed. "That's a big risk. We don't know what this something new might be." As if in response to Holt's words, the station shuddered. The lights dimmed and emergency power kicked in, bathing the lab in an eerie red glow. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice came over the comm, "we're losing control of critical systems. Life support is fluctuating, and we're having trouble maintaining our orbit." Holt's eyes hardened. "Begin full evacuation procedures. Get everyone to the docked ships." As chaos erupted across the station, Lieutenant Zaravek stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with an idea. "Commander, what if we could communicate with the nanobots? Guide their evolution instead of fighting against it?" All eyes turned to Dennis and Uma. The couple exchanged a glance, their link humming with shared understanding. "We could try," Dennis said. "Our connection to the nanobots is stronger than ever. If we could interface directly with the main computer core—" "It's risky," Uma added, "but it might be our only chance to understand what's happening and regain control." Holt looked from Dennis and Uma to Dr. Chen, his expression conflicted. After a moment of tense silence, he nodded. "Do it, but be careful. If anything goes wrong, we'll have no choice but to shut down the core and hope for the best." As Dennis and Uma prepared to interface with the station systems, the gravity of the situation settled over them. They stood on the precipice of something monumental, a potential revolution in the relationship between organic life and artificial intelligence. Their joined hands tightened, drawing strength from each other as they prepared to plunge into the unknown. Unknown digital realm. As their hands touched the interface panel, a surge of energy coursed through their bodies, and their consciousness expanded outward, merging with the station's systems. At first, the sensation was overwhelming. Dennis and Uma felt as if they were everywhere and nowhere at once. Their minds stretched across the vast network of nanobots and circuitry. They could sense every system, every fluctuation in power, every minute change in the station's operations. Commander Holt watched anxiously as the couple's eyes glazed over, their bodies becoming unnaturally still. Dr. Chen monitored their vital signs, her brow furrowed with concern. "Their neural activity is off the charts," she reported, her voice tense. "I've never seen anything like this." Holt nodded grimly, then made a decision. "Initiate a controlled power reduction to the core systems," he ordered. "We need to slow this process down without severing their connection entirely." As the power levels began to drop, Dennis and Uma felt the change ripple through the network. The nanobots, sensing the shift, began to consolidate their efforts. In response, Dennis and Uma's bodies started to transform. Their skin took on a metallic sheen, shimmering under the lab's harsh lighting. Intricate patterns of light pulsed beneath their skin, mirroring the station's circuitry. Dr. Chen gasped as she watched the transformation unfold. "Commander," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "their neural patterns are synchronizing not just with each other, but with the station itself. They're becoming living conduits for the hybrid technology." As Dennis and Uma's consciousness expanded, they became aware of the fear and tension radiating from the crew. They could sense the conflict brewing in the docking bay, the anxiety of the diplomats, and the growing alarm of the Barzan warship. Suddenly, a new presence entered their shared mental space. Lieutenant Zarovex's consciousness brushed against theirs, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. "I can hear you," Vex's thoughts echoed in their minds. "The nanobots. They're not trying to control us. They want to work with us, to create something new." Through Vex, Dennis and Uma gained a clearer understanding of the situation unfolding outside their digital cocoon. They sensed the standoff in the docking bay, the fear of the extremists trying to escape, and the grit of Rodriguez and his security team. With this newfound awareness, Dennis and Uma made a decision. They initiated a station-wide broadcast, projecting holographic versions of themselves throughout Epsilon 9 and the docked ships. In the docking bay, the holographic figures appeared between Rodriguez's team and the would-be hijackers. The extremists lowered their weapons, startled by the sudden apparition. "Please," Uma's voice echoed through the station, "there's no need for conflict. What's happening here is not a threat, but an opportunity." Dennis continued, his voice overlapping with Uma's in perfect harmony. "We understand your fear, but this technology doesn't seek to erase who we are. It wants to enhance us, to bridge the gap between organic life and artificial intelligence." As they spoke, the holographic display shifted, showing vivid representations of the potential benefits. Crew members watched in awe as simulations played out before their eyes. Rapid healing of injuries, instantaneous communication across vast distances, and solutions to complex problems materializing in seconds. In the lab, Commander Holt watched the broadcast with a mixture of amazement and apprehension. "Dr. Chen," he said quietly, "what are we dealing with here?" Chen shook her head, her eyes wide. "I'm not sure, sir, but I think we're witnessing the birth of something entirely new, a true symbiosis between human, Barzan, and artificial intelligence." As the presentation continued, Dennis and Uma's consciousness expanded further. They could feel the shifting emotions of the crew, the gradual transition from fear to curiosity, from resistance to cautious optimism. Finally, their holographic forms solidified, appearing more lifelike than ever. Dennis and Uma stood before the assembled humans and Barzans, their bodies now a seamless blend of organic and machine. "We stand at a crossroads," Uma began, her voice resonating with newfound depth and clarity. Dennis picked up the thread. "The choice before us is monumental. We offer you the opportunity to join us, to gradually integrate with this network and experience the benefits of this new technology. But we understand the magnitude of this decision," Uma continued. "It's not one to be made lightly or under duress. We propose a voluntary program, allowing each individual to choose their own path forward." As their words hung in the air, Dennis and Uma could sense the weight of the moment. The fate of two species, the future of human-Barzan relations, and the potential dawn of a new era of existence all balanced on a knife's edge. In the tense silence that followed, Commander Holt stepped forward, his expression a mix of awe and perseverance. "I think," he said slowly, We're going to need a lot more information before we can make any decisions. He turned to Dr. Chen and Lieutenant Vex. I want a full analysis of the risks and potential benefits, and we need to establish communication protocols with the Barzan leadership immediately. As the crew began to mobilize following Holt's orders, Dennis and Uma remained connected to the station's core. They could feel the nanobots continuing to evolve, to adapt. Whatever the outcome of this pivotal moment, they knew that the journey they had begun was just getting started. The true test of cooperation between humans, barzans, and this new hybrid intelligence was just beginning. The true test of cooperation between humans, barzans, and this new hybrid intelligence was unfolding before their eyes. As Dennis and Uma's holographic forms faded, a buzz of excitement and apprehension filled the station. Crew members huddled in small groups, discussing the implications of what they had just witnessed. Commander Holt, his face a mask of willpower, strode purposefully through the corridors, tapping his communicator. Dr. Chen, Lieutenant Vex, meet me in Conference Room Alpha immediately, he ordered. We need to establish a task force to evaluate this situation. Within minutes, the core team had assembled. Dr. Chen's eyes sparkled with scientific curiosity, while Lieutenant Vex seemed more composed than ever, her partial integration with the nanobots already evident in the subtle shimmering patterns beneath her skin. We need a structured approach, Holt began, his voice firm. Dr. Chen, I want you to lead the scientific aspect. Begin conducting preliminary tests on volunteers from both human and Barzan crews. We need to understand the full scope of this hybridization process. Chen nodded eagerly. I'll start immediately, Commander. We'll need to set up a dedicated lab space for this research. Granted, Holt replied. He turned to Lieutenant Vex. Zara, your unique perspective will be invaluable. I want you to work with Security Chief Rodriguez to implement new protocols for managing our growing hybrid population. Vex straightened, her voice steady. Understood, sir. I'll bridge the gap between unmodified crew members and those who undergo the process. As the task force dispersed to begin their work, news of the events on Epsilon 9 spread like wildfire. The station's communication channels lit up with incoming transmissions from Earth in the Barzan homeworld. In the days that followed, Dr. Chen's lab became a hub of activity. Volunteers from both species lined up to participate in the preliminary tests. Chen and her team worked tirelessly, analyzing data and refining the hybridization process. Fascinating, Chen murmured, studying a holographic display of neural activity. The nanobots seem to adapt to each individual's unique physiology. We can actually fine-tune the level of integration. This discovery sent ripples of relief through the station. Crew members who had been hesitant about the process now approached with renewed interest, knowing they could choose the extent of their integration. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Vex found herself in high demand. Her ability to interface with both the station systems and unmodified individuals made her an essential mediator. She spent long hours in meetings with Rodriguez, developing protocols to ensure the safety and comfort of all crew members. We need to establish clear guidelines for hybrid individuals, Rodriguez insisted during one such meeting. Their enhanced abilities could be seen as a security risk. Vex nodded, her eyes flickering with data as she processed the information. Agreed, but we must also ensure they're not discriminated against. Integration, not segregation, should be our goal. As Epsilon 9 adapted to its new reality, the political landscape shifted dramatically. The arrival of Ambassador Marcus Reeves from Earth and Counselor Nira Zal from the Barzan homeworld brought a new level of complexity to the situation. Reeves, a tall, distinguished man with a reputation for skepticism, surprised everyone with his approach. In a bold move, he volunteered for a supervised partial integration with the nanobot network. If I'm to make informed decisions about this technology, he announced to a gathered crowd, I need to experience it firsthand. The procedure was broadcast live across Earth in the Barzan homeworld. Millions watched as Reeves underwent the transformation, his body shimmering with newfound connectivity. When he opened his eyes, there was a look of wonder on his face. It's extraordinary, he breathed, flexing his fingers as if seeing them for the first time. The potential here is beyond anything we could have imagined. Counselor Zal, by contrast, remained cautious. She spent long hours in discussions with Captain Jorah Thex, who maintained a defensive position with his warship. However, recognizing the potential benefits, Zal authorized a small team of Barzan scientists to board Epsilon 9 and study the hybridization process. "We must proceed with utmost care," Zal stressed during a joint session with Holt and Reeves. "The military and economic implications of this technology are staggering. I propose a joint human Barzan research initiative with strict controls on the spread of the nanobots." As negotiations continued, Dennis and Uma found themselves at the center of a whirlwind. Their unique status as the first human Barzan hybrid couple made them both a symbol of unity and a subject of intense scrutiny. They spent long hours in meetings, interviews, and demonstrations, their bodies now more integrated with the station's systems than ever before. The strain began to show in quiet moments. One night, as they stood before the viewport in their quarters, Dennis turned to Uma, his eyes filled with a mix of love and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, reaching for her hand. "Sometimes it feels like we're losing ourselves in all of this." Uma squeezed his hand, her skin shimmering with pulses of light that matched his own. "I know," she whispered, "but we're in this together. We just need to remember why we started this journey in the first place." As they embraced, the station hummed around them, its systems more responsive and efficient than ever. Epsilon 9 itself was changing, adapting to the needs of its inhabitants in real time. The transformation attracted attention from corporate interests on both Earth and the Barzan homeworld, who saw the potential for revolutionary advancements. In her lab, Dr. Chen made a breakthrough that would add yet another layer to the ongoing debates. Studying long-term projections of hybridization effects, she discovered something remarkable. "Commander," she reported, her voice trembling with excitement, "the nanobots aren't just enhancing our current abilities. They're repairing cellular damage and optimizing bodily functions. This could potentially extend the lifespan of both humans and Barzans by decades, if not centuries." As word of this discovery spread, the atmosphere on Epsilon 9 shifted once again. The station had become a true melting pot of human, Barzan, and hybrid individuals, each grappling with the implications of this new reality. The future of both species hung in the balance, with Epsilon 9 at the center of it all. Dennis and Uma, their bodies and minds irrevocably altered, stood at the heart of this transformation. As they looked out at the stars, they knew that their journey, and the journey of their entire station, was nowhere near the end. The true test of this new era of cooperation and integration was just beginning. The true test of cooperation between humans, Barzans, and this new hybrid intelligence was unfolding at a rapid pace. As days turned into weeks, Epsilon 9 became a hive of activity, with more crew members stepping forward to undergo the hybridization process. Dennis and Uma found themselves at the center of this transformation, their bodies evolving beyond what anyone had initially imagined. Their skin took on a translucent quality, revealing the intricate network of nanobots flowing through their veins like liquid starlight. As they walked through the station's corridors, their presence elicited a mix of awe and curiosity from both hybridized and non-hybridized crew members. "It's remarkable," Dr. Chen mused, studying the couple's bioreadings. "Your integration with the station's systems has reached unprecedented levels. You're essentially living conduits of information now." Dennis flexed his fingers, watching the nanobots pulse beneath his skin. "It's still strange to look at ourselves sometimes," he admitted. "But the connection we feel, it's indescribable." Uma nodded, her eyes flickering with data streams. "We can sense every part of the station, every crew member. It's like we've become the heart of Epsilon 9. Their new role as overseers of the hybridization process kept them busy around the clock. They spent hours in the medical bay, guiding newly transformed individuals through their first moments of heightened awareness. Meanwhile, Ambassador Marcus Reeves, who had initially approached the process with skepticism, became its most vocal proponent. His partial hybridization had opened his eyes to possibilities he'd never imagined. "Counselor Zal," Reeves said, addressing the Barzan representative during a video conference, "what we have here is nothing short of revolutionary. I propose we establish a joint human Barzan hybridization research institute right here on Epsilon 9. Zal's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed a hint of interest. "Your enthusiasm is noted, Ambassador, But we must proceed with caution. The implications of this technology are far-reaching. As they debated, Dr. Chen burst into the conference room, her face flushed with excitement. "Excuse the interruption," she said breathlessly, "but I've made a breakthrough. The hybrid nanobots, we can program them to target specific genetic defects. Do you understand what this means?" The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Reeves was the first to speak. "Are you saying we could potentially cure genetic diseases?" Chen nodded vigorously. "In both humans and barzans, the possibilities are endless." The news spread like wildfire through the station and beyond. Within hours, Epsilon 9's communication channels were flooded with messages from both Earth and the Barzan homeworld. People with previously incurable conditions were clamoring for a chance to participate in the program. Security Chief Elena Rodriguez found herself working overtime to manage the influx of new arrivals. She implemented a new identification system using biosignatures that combined organic and technological elements. "Hold still," she instructed a newly hybridized crew member, scanning his arm with a sleek device. "There, your unique biosignature is now registered in our system. This will allow us to track and manage our growing hybrid population more effectively." Even Captain Jorathex, who had maintained a defensive position with his warship, began to soften his stance. After lengthy discussions with his crew and superiors, he agreed to allow a small group to undergo the hybridization process. "Your experience will shape our people's perception of this technology," Thex told the volunteers sternly. "Report everything, no matter how insignificant it may seem." As the transformation of Epsilon 9 accelerated, physical changes became apparent. The station's hull began to regenerate and strengthen itself, incorporating hybrid technology. New organic-looking structures sprouted within, creating more efficient living and working spaces. Dennis and Uma found themselves at the heart of these changes, their bodies now intimately connected to the station's evolving systems. They could feel every new growth, every adaptation. "It's beautiful," Uma whispered one night as they stood in their quarters, watching new structures form along the walls. "But sometimes I worry we're losing ourselves in all of this." Dennis took her hand, feeling the nanobots in their bodies synchronize. "I know what you mean. We need to remember to take time for us, away from our responsibilities." Their moment of intimacy was interrupted by an alert from the station's systems. A group of human and Barzan scientists were requesting an urgent meeting to discuss a new proposal, using hybrid technology to terraform a nearby uninhabitable planet. As Dennis and Uma made their way to the meeting, they passed Lieutenant Zara Vex leading a group of newly hybridized individuals through an orientation session. "Focus on the data stream," Vex instructed, her voice calm and reassuring. "Let it flow through you. Don't try to control it, just observe." The couple paused briefly, watching the group. Vex nodded to them, a look of understanding passing between them. They all knew the challenges that lay ahead for these new hybrids. Entering the conference room, Dennis and Uma found it buzzing with excitement. Scientists from both species were animatedly discussing the terraforming proposal, their bodies shimmering with varying degrees of hybridization. As the meeting began, Uma suddenly froze, her eyes widening. Dennis felt it too, a faint signal, unlike anything they'd experienced before. "What is it?" one of the scientists asked, noticing their reaction. Dennis and Uma exchanged a look of wonder and apprehension. "We're not sure," Dennis said slowly, "but we think we might be detecting signals from other star systems." The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. The hybridization program had just taken on a whole new dimension, potentially connecting them to civilizations beyond their wildest dreams. As the scientists erupted into excited discussion, Dennis and Uma stood quietly, their translucent hands intertwined. They knew that this discovery would add yet another layer of complexity to the already challenging situation on Epsilon 9. The station, once a simple outpost, had become the focal point of a transformation that would shape the future of both their species, and perhaps even their place in the galaxy. Galaxy. As Dennis and Uma stood transfixed by the revelation of distant signals, they felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through their hybrid bodies. The nanobots within them seemed to resonate with the newfound connection, accelerating their transformation at an unprecedented rate. "Dennis," Uma gasped, her voice crackling with static. "Something's happening to us." Their skin began to shimmer more intensely, the boundaries between flesh and technology blurring, until they appeared as beings of pure light and energy. The crew members around them stepped back in awe and uncertainty as Dennis and Uma's forms began to dissolve. "We're merging with the station," Dennis realized, his consciousness expanding rapidly. It's incredible." In a matter of moments, their individual bodies ceased to exist, their essence spreading throughout Epsilon 9's core systems. They became one with the station, their shared consciousness encompassing every deck, every corridor, every circuit. The transformation didn't stop there. Guided by Dennis and Uma's combined intellect, the hybrid nanobots began to restructure the entire station at the molecular level. The hull shimmered and flowed, its metal and composite materials giving way to a crystalline lattice that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Commander Holt, watching from the bridge as the walls around him began to shift and change, immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. "This is Commander Holt," he announced over the station-wide comm system, his voice tight with urgency. "All non-hybrid personnel, proceed to emergency evacuation protocols immediately. Report to docked ships for immediate departure." As crew members rushed to comply with the order, the station's internal spaces began to reconfigure themselves. Organic-looking chambers sprouted from walls, corridors reshaped to optimize flow, and new structures emerged that seemed to anticipate the needs of the hybrid inhabitants. In her lab, Dr. Chen worked feverishly, analyzing the rapidly changing composition of the station. Her eyes widened as she interpreted the data scrolling across her screens. "This is impossible," she muttered, running the tests again. "The hybrid nanobots aren't just altering the station's structure, they're creating an entirely new form of matter." She zoomed in on a molecular visualization, watching in disbelief as particles seemed to flicker in and out of existence. "It's existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions," she realized, her voice barely above a whisper. As the evacuation proceeded, Ambassador Reeves and Counselor Zal stood side by side in the observation deck, watching the station's metamorphosis unfold before their eyes. "We're witnessing the birth of a new era," Reeves said, his partially hybridized body humming with energy. "This goes beyond anything we could have imagined." Zal nodded, her usual caution giving way to a sense of awe. "Our peoples stand at a crossroads. The decisions we make now will shape the future of both our species." They turned to face each other, a moment of understanding passing between them. "We need to act," Zal said firmly, "to guide this transformation." Reeves nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "I propose we create a new entity, a hybrid collective uniting humans, barzans, and hybrid individuals. Together, we can explore the frontiers of science and consciousness that Epsilon 9 is opening before us." As they began to draft their proposal, the station's transformation reached a fever pitch. The crystalline lattice of the hull refracted starlight in dazzling patterns, creating a spectacle visible to the evacuated ships, maintaining a safe distance. Suddenly, every screen and holographic display on the station and the nearby vessels flickered to life. The combined consciousness of Dennis and Uma manifested as a swirling vortex of light and data, their voices merging into one as they addressed the assembled crews. "We have become one with Epsilon 9, they announced, their words resonating not just through speakers, but directly in the minds of all who listened. "The station has evolved beyond its original purpose. It has become a gateway to realms of space and consciousness we've only begun to comprehend." The image shifted, showing vivid projections of distant star systems, alternate dimensions, and forms of life beyond imagination. "We offer you a choice," Dennis and Uma continued. "Return to Epsilon 9 and join us in the hybrid collective, or depart to share the news of these events with your homeworlds. The future of both our species hangs in the balance." As the message concluded, a hush fell over the assembled crews. Captain Jorah Thex, who had watched the entire transformation unfold from the bridge of his Barzan warship, felt a profound shift in his perspective. The defensive posture he had maintained for so long seemed suddenly inadequate in the face of this new reality. I volunteer, Thex announced, his voice carrying across the comm channels. I will be the first full barzan to undergo complete hybridization. His declaration sent shockwaves through both the human and barzan crews. As Thex prepared to return to the station, Epsilon 9 began to detach from its moorings, propelled by a new form of hybrid energy that defied conventional physics. The crystalline structure of the station pulsed with increasing intensity as it began to ascend, leaving its original orbit behind. Dennis and Uma, their consciousness now spanning the entire structure, guided Epsilon 9 towards the source of the faint signals they had detected, a distant star system that promised contact with advanced civilizations. As the station prepared for its first faster-than-light jump, a shimmering portal opened on its surface. It was a final invitation to those who wished to join the hybrid collective on its journey of discovery. Dr. Chen, her face set with commitment, stepped forward. "I'm going," she announced to her fellow scientists. "There's too much to learn, too much to discover. I can't turn back now." Lieutenant Zarevex joined her, along with a diverse group of humans and barzans who had chosen to embrace this new future. As they approached the portal, their bodies began to shimmer, the hybrid nanobots initiating the transformation process. From the bridge of his ship, Commander Holt watched as the last of the volunteers disappeared into the glowing aperture. He knew that his duty now lay in returning to Earth, to prepare humanity for the changes that were to come. "Godspeed, Epsilon 9, he murmured as the hybrid station's engines flared to life. In a burst of light that outshone the stars themselves, Epsilon 9 vanished from normal space-time, leaving behind a legacy that would forever alter the course of human and barzan history. As the remaining ships began their long journey home, the crews couldn't help but wonder what discoveries awaited the hybrid collective in the vast, uncharted realms that lay beyond. The transformation of Epsilon 9 marked not an ending, but a beginning. A first step into a future where the boundaries between species, between organic and synthetic, between matter and energy, had been irrevocably blurred. And at the heart of it all, Dennis and Uma, their love now eternal and boundless, guided their new family towards the infinite possibilities that awaited them among the stars.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.